Welcome, everyone, to episode 15. Cary 15, 55 and 5. I'm Ian. This is Cary Silkin. I sense the hesitation.
What did Meatloaf say? 2 out of 3 ain't bad. I'll take 1 out of 6.
I think we're at 5 out of 14.
I'm on a bad streak here.
It's a cold streak. Yeah.
So,
to be fair, a lot of the folks who've been checking in, they've said some of these names are quite the surprise also to them, and some big time wrestling historians have been checking in saying that. So I wouldn't feel too bad, Cary.
well, let's see what we got here.
Yeah, so to catch people up, this is from the 1955 Parkhurst set. Cary and I are very talkative, so we spend 5 minutes maximum talking about each of the wrestlers you see. This is done to help us learn and help you learn a little bit about each of the wrestlers so that they're not forgotten. And we are doing this in a condensed way so that these lessons are enjoyable and that we can have a little fun learning about these wrestlers, because if we don't bring up these names, very few others will. So here is the deal. I'm going to set the timer on this clock for 5 minutes on my cell phone, and at the end of 5 minutes, it's going to beep. And if it beeps, we cut it down because Cary might have a lot to say about this man. I'm going to take a look. Cary, if you'd like to take a look, a nice put together man. I'm going to start the clock on this gentleman. What can you tell me about Don Evans?
I'm going to hit you over the head with a bat. Come on, dude. What can I say about him? Fine looking man.
There you go.
Could almost could pass for a one of the French Canadian, as they used to say, midget wrestlers.
Okay.
Although see the way his body is?
Ah, yeah, his upper body is very...
Right.
He's got a larger torso than his legs.
But, Ian, you're killing me here. Don Evans.
Yeah.
Please school me.
You might want to call Kevin Sullivan on this one. He had a extensive tenure in New England, but even Kevin might not know because that was from 37 to 45. So Don Evans, by the time this set came out, was already wrestling for nearly 20 years, Cary. So no blame to go around on this one. This is a true veteran, although he looks younger than some of the other guys we've spoken about. So Don Evans had a really interesting career, though. He was tied at the hip, I don't know, on purpose or inadvertently, with Lou Thesz. So one of his very first opponents in 1937 was Lou Thesz. And he'd go on later many times to wrestle Lou Thesz for the NWA World Championship, despite not being a real top-of-the-card guy. It seems like, and someone can jump in and correct us or comment, it seems like he'd known Lou Thesz or was a popular opponent or he had good chemistry with Lou Thesz, because he always seemed to wrestle Lou Thesz even when Don Evans was not at the top of the card himself.
Well, a Tim Hornbreaker guy would maybe know something about this. I mean, if he's going to have that many matches, were these title matches or just random?
This was the thing. He'd wind up in title matches later. In 37, Thesz was also just breaking in or had limited experience. In 47, he challenged Thesz for the title for the NWA Championship. In 48, he challenged Orville Brown for the championship. 52, he challenges Thesz again. And really, he was tied to the hip occasionally to Lou Thesz. It was like Steamboat Flair almost, where they do the Steamboat Flair match in 75, and then they come back to it in 79 for the TV title or the US title. They'd come back to it in 84 for the world title, back to it in 89 and 94. It seemed like an every 5 years thing with Mr. Don Evans and Lou Thesz. So that was the interesting thing that I found, at least a pattern with Don Evans. And in addition to that, he also fought a man named Frank Sexton a lot.
That name I know. At least I know the name.
Yeah.
I don't... The one thing I'm not going to... as evident from the last 6, if I don't know it, at least I'd say I've seen the name.
Right.
But this is...
Well, Don Evans briefly in 45 wrestled under a mask. Frank Sexton defeated him and took the mask, unmasked him. So that's their history there. But he also challenged Frank Sexton in the original AWA. So not the Vern Gagne AWA, but the American Wrestling Association or American Wrestling Alliance.
I'm not sure, but
the original one before Vern Gagne.
So when did this guy's career end?
Oh, geez, he wrestled until 1968, a 31-year career.
Wow.
Yeah, and he wrestled in upstate, NWA upstate, wrestled in Houston, Maple Leaf Wrestling, Capital Wrestling, so he wrestled the Garden a bit in the late 50s. His results, again, we talked about incomplete history. They kind of pause in 59. They resume later in the 60s. His last match that's on any reputable site is against Argentina Rocca, 1968.
That's interesting. I'd like to know where that... I'm just curious, because at that point, Rocca was defrocked
right
from WWF, started his own promotion, which failed, and I guess he worked here and there in the 60s.
Right.
Before becoming a color commentator in the 70s.
With that beautiful accent with Vince McMahon.
And a beautiful hairdo.
Right. So, I'm going to pause it there. Almost 4 minutes, 30 seconds on Don Evans. An interesting guy. And maybe a little bit bigger in history than we know. So maybe someone's got to dig and write a little bio on this guy. Because, I mean, if you're wrestling Lou Thez as much as he did, if you're wrestling Orville Brown, if you're wrestling for the original AWA championship, you're probably a pretty good wrestler. And if you stuck around for 31 years, you're probably doing something right. So hopefully somebody out there will step forward with more Don Evans information.
Well, hopefully there'll be a card one day that I can contribute something on. That would be this is not my New Year's resolution, it's my New Year's wish.
I promise Buddy Rogers we'll get to Buddy Rogers soon.
First, the COVID goes away.
Right.
Then Cary's able to contribute something on this.
Well, we still got Buddy Rogers. We got Lou Thez. We have the great Little Beaver is in this set. So we're going to see Little Beaver.
I hope Fuzzy Cupid's in it also. Skylo Low.
Fuzzy Cupid, I believe, is in it. And we also have the great Montana, which I always forget. Hombre Montana. I should remember that. We have a couple blockbuster names coming up.
All right.
So Bearcat Wright. We have some big Bobo Brazil. We'll be talking about him. So as we get through the rough patch, this winter, this desert, we see the oasis of the big A-list stars on the horizon. So that was a tough one, Cary.
Well, that's all right. It's fun to learn about these guys, and maybe in the many the podcasts I listen to or the books I read about wrestling history, some of these names will pop up like after the fact, which seems to always happen.
And we got to keep talking about him, because if we don't,
right,
who else is? So for Cary Silkin, our producer, AJ, for Lamb Chop the Cat, who's joined us for this episode, for Uncle Gunny, Captain Lou Albano, thanks for joining 55 and 5.